Great. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Laura Oppenheimer. I'm here to talk to you all today about what's new on Quizlet for teachers, something I'm very passionate about. So just so you know who you're talking to, this is me. I'm a product manager at Quizlet. I've actually worked at Quizlet for about 5 years, a little over 5 years. And I originally started on the marketing side. And I'm so excited to be here today because the Unconference was actually one of my big ideas when I started. I was like, we should hold a big virtual event for teachers to help them use Quizlet and know how to use Quizlet in new ways. So it's super exciting to be back here presenting now and getting to cheer on Jose and Rory and all the great folks on the marketing team who have made this amazing event possible. Some other things about me, I am a mom of two boys, a 3.5-year-old and a almost 7-year-old. My 7-year-old will be starting first grade in a few weeks, which is very exciting. And I'm a Bay Area native, so I live pretty close to Quizlet HQ in San Francisco. So to start, I would say, like, to give you a sense of sort of how I do my work and why I'm talking to you, here's what I do as a product manager at Quizlet. So I spend a lot of time getting to know our users. A big part of my job is like knowing who Quizlet's users are, and in this case, my specific users that I want to talk to are teachers. I spend a lot of time talking to teachers in different ways, in formal ways and informal ways. As part of that, I try to understand, like, what are the problems that teachers have? What's frustrating? What keeps them up at night? Sometimes I'm thinking about a very specific problem, like how could we make it easier to create content on Quizlet? And sometimes I'm actually just curious about like broad problems that maybe aren't even Quizlet related. Like, how do you do balance hybrid teaching? What is it like to teach on Zoom and in person at the same time? And then I work with the team here to try to come up with ways that we can solve their problems. That sounds simple, right? So this spring, we started working on a new product for teachers, and we started with research. So as part of this project, we did a lot of interviews with teachers. We did one-on-one interviews with 8 teachers. We surveyed Quizlet using teachers, and we dug into the competitive landscape. So like this is an example of a question we did, which is like, do you consider Quizlet Live to be part of the formative assessment you do with your students? And we're trying to learn more about sort of how teachers use technology, how they use Quizlet. In this case, we are spending a lot of time talking about formative assessment. And that forms the beginning of sort of how we approach building new things. So as we dug in, here is what we learned. First, engagement is so important. Y'all, and you probably, I hope you hear this all the time, but maybe not. Y'all are superheroes. So it doesn't matter if you're teaching in person or online or in hybrid. The last 18 months have been so tough. Finding new ways to meaningfully engage students is key. And Quizlet Live is great, but teachers were also frequently turning to other services and companies to keep things interesting, to keep students engaged. I think this is actually really good for classroom variety, but it's not good from my perspective for you as the teacher. Why? Because you already have all your content on Quizlet, and we know teachers spend so much time creating content, finding content, customizing content to get it just right for your curriculum, your unit, your teaching, and then to have to leave Quizlet to go somewhere else that doesn't seem like a great use of time. Okay. Second, formative assessment is valued, but not easy. Not always easy. So research shows that completing regular formative assessments with your students is one of the most impactful things that teachers can do to impact student learning and student outcomes. Many of you described the formative assessment activities you do, including exit tickets, Google form-based feedback, and other methods. So I know, at least for me in California, it's still morning time, still waking up, still sort of ingesting coffee. I thought we could do a little, if you can, put in the chat some kind of formative assessment that you like to do with your students. I mean, we can read out a few of those since that's what we're talking about today. So drop a kind of formative assessment activity you like to do. Exit cards, mini whiteboards, warm-ups. What do we got? Someone says Google quiz, vocab review, find the error. Ooh, thumbs up, thumbs down. 3, 2, 1. There's so many different ways that teachers are doing formative assessment in the classroom. Yeah, keep the ideas coming so your fellow teachers can learn from you. And it's so great to hear all these different ways. But I will say, candidly, that when I asked teachers, like, talk to me about the formative assessment you do, it kind of reminded me of what I look like when I go to the dentist and the dentist asks me, like, have you been flossing? So like I'd be like, mm-hmm, yes. And then dentist would be like, how many days a week? And I'm like, oh, three, 4, 2, not enough. It was clear that, like, yes, people know that formative assessment is so important, but finding ways to integrate it into teaching in a seamless way isn't always easy. So we did a survey in March, and we found that 2/3 of teachers reported spending less than an hour a week doing formative assessment activities. 20% of teachers spend less than 20 minutes a week doing these activities. So less than 5 minutes a day to understand if your students are catching anything you're teaching. So we know that there's a big opportunity there. And then, our third finding is, like, we probably aren't going back to the old way. And by that, I mean, as tough as this year has been, there have been some pretty big changes that we think, and teachers think, are here for good. Things like easy access to device in classrooms and, like, high-speed internet, ways to connect with parents remotely instead of requiring parents to, like, leave work and do in-class meetings, in-classroom meetings, at school meetings during the middle of the day. You can do that over Zoom now. More robust usage of platforms like Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, to making it easier for students to stay organized, and for everything to sort of stay in one place. Okay, so we started thinking and asking questions. What could we create that could help teachers engage their students in new ways? How could we make it so that you don't need to leave Quizlet to introduce variety into your teaching? How might we make it super easy for teachers to do high quality formative assessments that students also enjoy? What would a Quizletized version of an exit ticket look like? And we got to work. So now I want to show you a quick demo of what we were working on and this is something that is not available today on Quizlet, but it's coming this fall. So I'll show you the demo and then we can talk about it. Let's see. All right, I'm going to pause that before it plays again. So meet our newest Quizlet Live activity. We've been calling this activity Quick Assess, but that's a working name. And it'll be joining our current Quizlet Live activity as part of a suite of in-class synchronous activities teachers can use to engage their classrooms this fall. It's designed to help you quickly conduct formative assessments with your students. Use it as a pretest, use it at the end of class, in the middle to break things up. Use it to evaluate what your students know. It's up to you. So that was a demo of what this will look like in the future. Not everything you saw will be out immediately this fall, but I'll walk you through the different pieces. and also where we want to go from here. Oops, I don't want us to do the demo again. Next screen. Okay, so we start on the set page. This is where all activities on Quizlet start. You'll first need to be signed into your account as a teacher. So if you sign into your account on Quizlet and you don't see this little option that says live, it probably means your account is marked as a student. You can change that on the settings page. And if you run into any problems, of course, you can get in touch with our great team at the Help Center. You'll see an option for live at the top of the page. We recently made a change to bring live up to the top of the page because we felt like it was kind of buried under match and gravity and it made it hard to find. So it's right here at the very top. So you're going to click on that and then pick your activity. Note that we're still finalizing names. So these are sort of as part of the product development process, we'll often do designs and then we'll fill in like names and copy later. But you'll either choose to play Quizlet Live as you know it today, and that's sort of the option you see on the left that says practice and play, or this new activity. So if your goal is to practice, maybe do some review, you could pick Quizlet Live. And if your goal is to do an exit ticket or a pre-test, you could pick this quick assess option, which will help shine a light on what your students know and don't know. From there, you'll choose what kind of content you want to focus on in your assessment. One of the pieces of feedback we heard from teachers as we did our research was, I love Quizlet Live, but I just want to be able to control the questions and what the students are seeing. So here you'll choose up to 12 questions to present to your students. You'll need to pick at least 4 to get started. And your students will have 20 seconds to answer each question on their own devices. In the future, we may offer ways to customize how much time students have to answer, but for now, we've settled on 20 seconds a question after talking to a number of teachers about how they'd use an activity like this. If you can do the math, this is Rory's area, not mine, but you can see that with 12 questions, 20 seconds each, we're talking about, an activity that takes 5 or 6 minutes. We wanted this to sort of be something that had a finite sort of amount of time associated with it, not something that was like really long or you'd use for the entire class, but really something that could be like a bell ringer activity, a pretest, something like that. So from there, you'll invite your students to join. Just like Quizlet Live today, your students will join from their devices and you choose when to start the activity. Your students can join from phones, Chromebooks, laptops, iPads, whatever device they have, as long as it has a browser and an internet connection, it should work. Just like Quizlet Live, you can always remove a student from your activity if they enter a nickname that isn't appropriate for your class. One thing we know is it can be a little nerve-wracking to start an activity if you don't know how it works or what your students are going to see. So here's what they see. They're on their phone, they'll enter a 6-digit code, and then their name. If they're already signed into Quizlet, we'll automatically pull their username. So this is a great reason to encourage your students to sign up for Quizlet and stay signed in, because it'll help speed up this process. And then from there, you'll present your questions to the class. Each student will also have the question and the answer choices on their device. You'll be able to see how many students have answered, and as the clock ticks down, students will get some encouragement to hurry up. So here again, you can see we present the question, and then we give them a prompt, like look at your device, here's where the question and answers are, and we'll start counting up the answers. So you can sort of see how engaged your students are. And students can also tell like, ooh, am I behind? We also think that showing answers coming in can help you as a teacher see sort of how much confidence your students have. Like if they're all answering really quickly, you're like, oh, this is an easier question. Students have higher confidence. If it's actually like taking till the very last second, oh, this is a harder one. And then after each question, you'll see a summary screen. You can use this screen to go over answer choices, where students get confused, etc. And this can also be a teaching moment or something you move through quickly. It's totally up to you. On the student side, they'll see a question and 4 answers. As I mentioned, we sometimes fill in copy when we're building this. You can see that we filled in 4 answers here that were all the same, but students will see their 4 answers, and then they will pick their answer and they'll get feedback after that 20 seconds is up. It looks like this. One thing we wanted to make sure we know is like we feel like it's very important that students not leave class without knowing where they are. So students need to know where they are in terms of relation to the learning objective for the class, and teachers also need to know, but we want to make sure that students aren't leaving class thinking like, I get this, when actually they don't get it. So here we're making sure that they know how they're doing in addition to the teacher knowing how the class is doing as a whole. And then at the end, you get this robust report. So a good exit ticket, good formative assessment is all about understanding what your students captured and what was missed. So here's where we bring it together. We show you exactly where your class is on the terms that you want them to learn, so you can better customize teaching to serve your students. So you can see that we're sort of giving this at a glance view, average score, how many students had perfect rounds, and then how many students had 80% or higher. And we've heard over and over again in conversations that like teachers say, if my students are getting like 80% of what I'm teaching, that feels like a win. So that's the number we settled on here. And then you can see on a term by term level how students sort of responded. So, you know, here for the Italian trade term, 27 of 31 students got this correct. Okay. And here's what students see. So students will get a report for themselves on how they did. So they'll see, oh, I got 25% right, only 1 of 4, not great. Okay, so what comes next? Does anyone know, you can put it in chat, what the phrase MVP means? Anyone know what MVP is? Let's see. Most valuable player. Yes, I wish that I was like Michael Jordan. Love it. So in the product world, okay, so someone says, Laura, your share screen only covers half my computer screen. Is there a way to make it bigger on your end, please? I don't think I can do it on my end, but I think that if you expand your own screen, you might be able to do that. So minimum viable product is right. It's the finish. It's not the finish thing, but it's the first thing we want to build. I think of it as like the scaffolding. And so to me, what I just walked you through is the minimum we could build for a teacher who wants to conduct a quick formative assessment with their students, but it's not enough. So I'm going to walk through some places that we want to go from here. Okay. The first is building better multiple choice questions. If you're a paid subscriber and you subscribe to Quizlet Teacher, you already have access to a great teacher, multiple choice options. So this is a feature that allows you to add your own multiple choice answers to your study sets. And then those answers will show up in Test and Learn. We know that good multiple choice questions are all about having the right distractors. They make all the difference. And so this is a way that you can deliver harder academic content to your students and really test their knowledge. So at launch, we aren't going to be pulling in these custom multiple choice options into this activity, but that's something we want to do. The second is short answer evaluation. Sometimes you want your students to answer harder production type questions. We know from learning science that having to produce the answer on your own instead of seeing it as a bunch of sort of options in front of you is actually like a harder learning activity. And it's actually really, really good for students' brains. So producing the answer themselves is key. And the challenge is, of course, that having to grade and evaluate all these things is more work for you as the teacher. And we want to make sure we're helping you save time where we can. Luckily, Quizlet is hard at work building something called the Learning Assistant, which is built on millions of pieces of content and answers from how students really learn on Quizlet. It combines the best of cognitive science with real data on how students progress through content. And what's really cool is that the Learning Assistant can actually do this for us. It can evaluate short answers. So here's an example. I was learning about the American Revolution. This is like key figures from the American Revolution, I think. And the term was Thomas Paine, and I wrote common sense pamphlet, and I spelled pamphlet incorrectly. So yes, this is not the best answer, but did I know the answer? I did, and maybe I fat fingered it, right? And as I think we think about sort of evaluating student knowledge, there are certain topics, of course, spelling tests, for example, or maybe vocab, foreign languages, where it's really important to get the exact spelling right or the accent perfectly right. But for some other subjects, maybe it's not as important, and we want to actually encourage students to produce the right answer without worrying about getting the 5-word answer in the exact right order. And here is where we can do that. So I'm really excited about this. I think this is going to be a huge time saver for teachers and push this product forward a ton. It's not something that's going to happen immediately, but it's where we want to go. I think it unlocks a big time saver for you and also a smarter way to evaluate and sort of gauge student understanding. And so from here, you can also, if you know, imagine other kinds of smart production questions. So things like fill in the blank and more. All right, and finally, this is just the beginning of what we're building. We know it's not enough. Namely, it's missing one big thing that we think Quizlet Live offers: the spontaneity, the unpredictability, and the fun. Quizlet is not Fortnite and it's not TikTok, but investing in making the experience fun is something we know will help students stay engaged and make this activity one that you and your students will want to turn to over and over again. These details are still being sorted out, so stay tuned to our blog, read your email when we send them out, etc. Okay, so I just talked a lot. To recap, we have a new Quizlet Live formative assessment activity launching this fall. It is designed to help you conduct fun and effective formative assessments with your students. We are launching with multiple choice questions, but looking to build out more content soon. Okay. Here are the questions that I'm anticipating coming in. Rory, I know, has been also looking at other questions coming in. So I'm going to run through these, and I have a little bit more in my presentation. I think we're okay on time. So I'm going to keep talking, but Rory, you flag me if we're running out of time. So is it going to be free? What paid features will there be? Yes, it will be free. So I would anticipate that multiple choice, those custom multiple choice options are part of our paid Quizlet teacher subscription. So I would anticipate that being paid, as well as the short answer evaluation being paid, but the feature, the core thing I walked through in the demo will be free. What is going to happen to regular Quizlet Live? Nothing. Quizlet Live is not going anywhere. We love Quizlet Live. Quizlet Live is so powerful. Nothing's happening to Quizlet Live, so no worries there. Are there teams? Not in this activity. We think that formative assessment, and the way we're thinking about it, is something that we want to sort of run on an individual student level. That being said, I talked to a teacher about this product a couple of days ago, and she was like, I could totally see having students team up and do this together. So of course, you customize your classroom and you make it work for your students, but the way we're thinking about it is for individuals. What kind of reports will I get? Is it connected to classes? What about class progress? At launch, that summary screen is sort of the key place that we're thinking about delivering reports, giving you a sense of your students at your classroom at a glance. We may do more connections into classes, et cetera, but not in the short term. What kind of content works? Terms, definitions, images. We are not supporting diagrams at launch for this, but otherwise, the vast majority of your Quizlet content will work. When is this all available? We are planning on launching a beta in late August, early September. A beta is a way that companies like Quizlet get early feedback on what they're building. And then we are looking to sort of more widely launch this fall. Okay. If you want to try this out with your students and be the first people to use this, we would love to have you participate in the beta. So Jose, if I can ask you to drop a link into chat, you can sign up on a Google form, or if you have your phone handy, you can also scan this QR code. It'll take you to a Google form where you can just fill out a little bit of info about how you use Quizlet and your Quizlet username and your email. And then when we're ready to have people dive in and be the first testers of this product, we will get in touch and enable that on your account. So I'll leave this up here for another maybe minute while people are scanning.
Laura, it's saying that people need permission to access the form.
Oh no, okay. I'm gonna stop sharing then for a second and fix that, and then I'll get back in there. So let's see.
Okay.
You wanna answer a question or two while I get that set up for folks?
Yeah, so there's a ton of questions in the Q&A. Some I know you just went over, and some you may have discussed during the session, and people may have jumped the gun and asked a question that is something that you ended up going over anyway throughout things. So one question, so Laura, are you good to answer this question? Because this is actually a question I have too. So Elizabeth, okay, perfect.
Let me drop the form in. Can you all let me know if you can open the form?
Okay.
Still need permission to access.
Well, no. I think he's talking about the previous one. That was too quick.
No, it's still not working. Oh my God.
Well, you know what? We can get that link out to everyone afterwards, after the session.
Okay.
I think that'll probably be what we should do, is just get the link out to everyone.
Oh, I figured it out. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Okay, let's try this one more time. I was limited, unfortunately, to people who work at Quizlet, which is not the folks on this call. So let's see. Let's try that.
So guys, pause in the chat so it doesn't go away.
Did I get it?
Pause in the chat. It sounds like it's good. So guys, pause in the chat so that the link still lives there. Oh, and the amount of messages. Zoom chat is awful. It's so hard to scroll back, and you guys can't stop talking.
Rory, are we going to say the question was?
Okay, so Elizabeth Wong has a great question. She said, earlier last year, teachers could create groups on Quizlet Live. Now only the random teams option is available, as well as play as individuals. Why was the create group option taken away, and is it going to come back for kids to be able to
still create groups on Quizlet Live? So there are two options when you go to create Quizlet Live. And for those of you who are newer to Quizlet, we're shifting away from talking about this new activity to Quizlet Live as it exists on Quizlet today. You'll see individuals and teams, and the teams will be created randomly. If you are a paid subscriber to Quizlet Teacher, once your students join through the join link, then you have the option to customize your teams. So it's a little bit hidden, but it is there. So again, the flow is, if you want to create your own teams, choose the teams option when you go to create your Quizlet Live. Then once your students have joined through the join screen, you can create those custom teams. All right, I'm going to finish up the presentation because there's a couple more things I wanted to touch on, and then we can do even more Q&A. Thank you for everyone for bearing with me as I figured out how the internet works. Okay. So, okay, here we are. Okay, there's some other cool stuff we've been working on too. Unrelated to formative assessment, but I did want to flag it because our team has been hard at work. Okay, one is making it easier to find great content. So we have a filter here so that you can search for content that's created only by teacher users. And we think this is so powerful. Here the example is, if you are teaching AP US history and you're using the American pageant as your textbook, most likely there's another teacher somewhere in the world who's also teaching AP US history and using the American pageant as a textbook. And wouldn't it be great if you could easily find their content, not the content created by another random student, but a content created by a teacher. So this filter used to only be available to paid subscribers, and we thought that doesn't make any sense. Let's make it easy for everybody to find great content. That's good for teachers, it's good for Quizlet. So that's available now. So you can go and you can find content created by teacher users. Super easy to use, great filter. Another option is more class creation controls. So we used to have this option here where there's only one option that said allow class members to add and remove sets and invite new members. We split these into two different options because we wanted to give you a little more control over how you manage your classes. So maybe you want to ask your students to add study sets as they create them, but you maybe don't want them removing other students and like dealing with all of that. So now you have more control over your classes. We're looking to make a couple more investments into classes to make them easier to add students, get students set up, etc. Nothing more specific on that right now, but that is something that we're thinking about. Another thing we launched is monthly summaries. Y'all are working so hard. We want to just help you see all the work you're doing in one place. So every month we're now sending you out a summary, like your most popular set, how many rounds of Quizlet Live you played, other data on what you've been doing on Quizlet. So that's in your email. And then finally, explanations. These are high quality, expert authored explanations that walk through tough textbook problems and exercises step by step. We think explanations are super useful for students. They're designed primarily for students, but we also know teachers can find value in them for helping students see other ways of solving problems, breaking down questions into manageable steps, and more. So explanations are another tool to help students who need extra support or practice even when teachers can't be there. And they are part of the paid Quizlet teacher subscription. Though some high school content is available for free, and you'll start seeing it on Quizlet. And that is it. So now we can go, I think we have, about like 5-10 minutes for questions before the next session. And I know the next session's also ask me lots of questions. So if you don't get your question answered right now, we can definitely answer it in the next session.
Definitely. So I've been scrolling through the questions. One question Irma asked is, does the 20 seconds include the time it takes to read the question? So people were wondering if the 20 seconds is something that can be adjusted.
It is not going to be adjusted right now, but I think that's something that we'll learn as we launch the product. And so that's the kind of thing, like, as if you're part of our beta and you start using it and you're like, this is too short or too long or it's too slow or too fast, like, send us that info and we can use it to make the product better. So we're thinking that 20 seconds is the right amount of time right now, but if it turns out it's not, we can always figure out ways to change it.
Michael asked, can students join in late if I've already started the activity?
Like Quizlet Live, everyone should be there at the start of the activity.
Okay. Oh, so just like Quizlet Live, a student doesn't have to have an account to log in and do. Does a student need an account for this?
No. I think one of the big challenges that we have, and to sort of peel back and open the curtain a little bit on how we think about things, I think one of the big challenges is for us the balance between making this really easy to use for students who might not have accounts or might not be able to create accounts for whatever reason, and also wanting to figure out how to provide reporting. So there's a balance there, and that's one of the things that we're thinking about, because I know there's a desire to both make this super easy for students to get into, but also provide more data on who the students are and what they're doing. So
Missy asked, will we be learning how to upgrade to the paid account? I have a free account currently.
that is not a planned question. I believe that Liz and Jordan are going to be walking through everything that is available in Quizlet Teacher in a later session today. So, but the easiest way to upgrade to the paid account is if you're signed into your account, there's a little at the top button at the top, there's a option that says Teacher. I think it's like a big yellow button. And if you click it, it'll take you through how to upgrade.
Rodolfo asks, any possibility of having diverse font styles to choose from in the future?
Ooh, that one I don't know about. We have one sort of typeface across Quizlet, and that's very consistent. That said, we also offer night mode. So I know that that's been a big accommodation. I don't want to say accommodation, but a big improvement we've made to help students who might have accessibility challenges and need a different way to see Quizlet. But I would not anticipate us changing our font anytime soon.
Someone asked, does it keep track of the students? Yes, they get a report, but can we have a record for the quarter? So can you go back in like a week later, 2 weeks later and see the results?
That is something we're exploring. I think probably for launch, we will just have that like at a glance view. But certainly ways of tying this activity back into Quizlet is something we want to think about. So, in the future, what I'd love to be able to offer is like, oh, you run this activity with your students, you see of the 12 questions, 6 of them, only half the students got them right. I'd love to make it available. So like with a single click or a single tap, you could say like, here's what you should study tonight, and have more connections between regular Quizlet and individual study and in-class study activities.
Mark asked a good question. He said, can the music be turned off? So during this session, just like in Quizlet Live, that's possible?
Yeah, on and off. And also, if you join the beta and you love the music, we want to hear about it. And if you don't love the music, we'd also love to hear about it. So
awesome. There have been a couple questions in the Q&A and in the chat. I know someone's been recently typing about the changes in printing the Quizlet study sets. Laura, do you have any feedback on that?
And yeah, I don't want folks to think we're ignoring questions about printing. So, for those who are newer to Quizlet or don't know what this is about, we used to offer an option to print out content from Quizlet with a bunch of different formatted ways of lists and flashcards and index cards and stuff. And we took that away at the beginning of the year. And I don't want to say I actually took that away, because I think that sounds worse than what we did, which was we realized that like in order to support that was going to be a significant challenge for us. And I know that's one of those things that you're like, how could that be a challenge? But it actually was like a pretty tough engineering problem. And as our team, we were in charge of building teacher products. Like, we made a decision that we wanted to build new digital learning tools instead of spending our time figuring out how to support printing for the next 6 months. So that was the decision that we made, because I believe that Quizlet is an amazing digital learning product. So I know that that is not the answer that a lot of folks are looking for, and I hear the frustration. We did make it so that you can easily print your set out, and it's not in all the beautiful formatting that we used to have. But that's sort of the trade-off we made, was like, let's make it easy to print stuff, and we know it's not going to be good enough for some teachers, and that is like an accommodation we can make. I will also note that you can export your content from Quizlet relatively easily into a CSV. And so that is something, if you want to get your content off Quizlet or you want to format it and print it yourself, you can do that. It's not as one click as it used to be, but it is there. So, and I'm happy to, I can show what that looks like really quickly if that's helpful. And then maybe we can wrap up and we can answer more questions in our next session too.
Yes, definitely.
All right, so here we are, and let me, okay. So here I'm on a Spanish, can you all see my Spanish verbs?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So if you go here, this little menu option, so much of like the cool power features of Quizlet are hidden right here under those 3 dots. If you hit export, you can actually export this in a bunch of different formats with commas, tabs, custom. So you could say, I want to do like a dot between them. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you could. Or depending on what kind of program you wanted to upload them into, you can choose to alphabetize them or not. And then you can copy your text and drop it into the program you're choosing. So Excel or Google Sheets or Microsoft Word or whatever you want. So that is that option. Rory, what do you want to do before we go to the next Q&A session in 5 minutes?
I think because we have the next session in 5 minutes, we've got a lot of good ideas and things to kind of kick off right from the beginning there. So depending on whether or not you are registered for the next Q&A session, it's going to be Laura and I just kind of going back and forth on things that we can both answer for any of your questions, but there are a ton of good questions here. We definitely want to jump over into the next Zoom link so that other people that registered for that session and aren't currently here right now can join us and be good right off the bat. So thank you guys so much. This has been super informative, and there's so many great things coming down the pike, and we will see you in the next session.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.